This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by North Dakota Tourism. Start planning your fall hunt in North Dakota at legendary.com. Today, Jared Wiklund from Pheasants Forever joins the show to discuss one of America's sleeper destination for pheasants. We hunted together in Iowa last season, and our results were eye-opening. There's a Rooster Rebound happening in the Hawkeye State, and we're about to tell you why. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Frank. I'm your host. Brandon Morton is our producer. Today I'm joined by Jared Wiklund, the Public Relations Manager for Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. Jared, what does Public Relations Manager mean for the Habitat organization?
It's a lot of answering tough questions from folks, whether it's from the field on the membership side, but I handle a lot of press releases, a lot of radio interviews, obviously TV interviews, advertising, things like that. I talk with a lot of upland hunters, and that's probably the best part of my job.
Right. I've read your information. I've heard you're all over the place. I just appreciate you taking a few minutes of your time today to kind of share your wisdom with us. What is it? How has this year been different for you with COVID, and how are you kind of keeping things pushing forward?
Yeah, the pandemic has been a weird deal, I think, for just about everybody, not just in America, but in the world. And, from the side of Pheasants Forever, the staple of our organization is local chapters hosting banquets. And obviously, a majority of those aren't happening right now. For this coming year, we basically budgeted for no banquets this fall, and a very, very sharp reduction in the spring if we have any at all. But the good news is that we're still doing okay. We've had a lot of upland hunters, both veteran and novice, I guess, asking about membership with Pheasants Forever. So membership's still going pretty well. And we do have some chapters. We just had one in Iowa the other day where we're going to talk about hosted a sort of a drive-through banquet where people could just stay at their car, get a nice meal, still play some raffles and games. So chapters are coming up with innovative ways to help us fundraise and create more mission, whether that's land acquisitions or habitat projects. But as you know, Mother Nature hasn't slowed down during COVID, and neither can we. We're still doing lots of land acquisitions and great enhancement projects on public lands, and that's we're going to continue to try to do those through thick and thin here. And that's probably been the biggest change is sitting back and working from home, obviously, but still moving forward the best we can and doing some quality projects on the landscape of what our members expect of us is the biggest thing.
I had Howard Vincent, probably a month and a half ago. He was on the show, and we kind of talked about, the funding and where that money is going. Are you guys seeing or anticipating, with the local chapters being kind of like a potentially just a year where there's probably not going to be as much work going on the ground, like maybe next year based on the money that won't be coming in 2020?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with more social distancing. We've still seen chapters doing projects where they can and keeping that 6-foot rule and wearing masks, and we encourage everybody to do that. And if you're out in the field this fall, one of the big initiatives we have going is responsible recreation, making sure you're following CDC guidelines and things of that nature. But you're absolutely right. It's a hit. There's a lot of chapters that are going a year here without holding their main fundraiser that they use. So maybe they're involved in a land acquisition right now, and they're on the hook for a couple grand that they've promised the DNR or promised a grant for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, whatever it might be. They're trying to come up with innovative ways to find that money, because as you know, just like the organization, our chapters run a slim line. I mean, we don't have we don't have thousands and thousands of dollars just laying around because we spend it so well with 91 cents of every dollar going back into habitat. So, it's been a little bit concerning, but I think chapters are finding innovative ways to get around it. Some of them, if they aren't having banquets, some of them have actually underwritten their banquets from last year to help provide an influx of memberships into the organization, which is keeping us afloat. So I think right now, even though it's hard times with COVID, our local model is shining through.
That's good. Well, before you took this position at the PF headquarters in the Twin Cities here, you worked down in Iowa, which is where you got your start with Pheasants Forever, right? When did you take that position, and how did you get your start with the organization?
Yeah, it's funny how things work out. I actually didn't really know a lot about Pheasants Forever until about 2008. Started to research them a little more, watch some of their shows online, that type of thing. But right after college, I flew up to Alaska and worked as a wilderness guide up there for over a year. Came back. Yeah, it's a pretty. If you've never been to Alaska, here's a shout out for Alaska. Make sure you get up there because it's pretty incredible. But it was hard coming home from there. I've never been in a place with such wilderness and wildlife, and with the mountains and bears and moose every day. It's a pretty hard place to come back from. But I came home. I did a lot of things. I was a tennis pro at Lifetime Fitness for a while, teaching folks how to play that great game. I was a teaching aide for a while in the Hopkins School District. I did a lot of different things, but my heart was set on the outdoors and conservation. So when I first got to college, we've had a lot of heart problems in my family. My father, who everybody knows I'm extremely tight with, has had a couple different heart attacks and things. And I got into exercise physiology because I wanted to go into that field and make a difference just due to the family matters I had going on at the time. But I got halfway through college, and I had my schedule set up in college the last 2 years where I had classes literally all day from like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday. I had Monday, Wednesday, Friday off. And the majority of that time, not all the time, I was doing a couple other things that probably shouldn't have been there, but I was hunting. I was out on the landscape, deer hunting, pheasant hunting, turkey hunting, whatever it might be, fishing. And that's when it really kicked in and said, you know what, I need to do something different. I need to pursue something in the outdoors, something with conservation. So that's where I took a lot of environmental studies classes and biology and got a degree in that field. And when I came out, that's what brought me up to Alaska. And I came back and I found an internship under Bob St. Pierre and Anthony Houck, who a lot of people know, who's not with us anymore, but he's with the Minnesota DNR at this point in time. But those two kind of took me under their wing. I was a intern, unpaid intern, mind you, for about 8.5 to 9 months. And then
Where was
I just
that
worked
at?
hard.
Was that in Minnesota?
That was at the national headquarters. And I worked my rear end off to try to get in with Pheasants Forever. And I pleaded with them and applied for a regional rep job down in southern Iowa. And basically said, listen, I want a shot. I can do it. And they gave me a shot and sent me down there. And that's what started my career with Pheasants Forever for 5 great years in the Hawkeye State.
Gotcha. So, well, first of all, I ran the exact same college schedule, classes Tuesday, Thursday. That meant I hunted Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Every single week. Yes. I was up in northern Minnesota hunting grouse, deer, ducks, and geese, and even some sharp tails up kind of in the area there. But where did you go to college?
I went to Luther College, which is in northeast Iowa. If anybody's been to the Cliffs region, Decorah, Iowa, it is a sportsman's paradise. And if anybody's looking for a great college, to send a liberal arts college to send their kids to school, I highly recommend that. And if you're an outdoors outdoorsman or outdoorswoman, all the better. It's got just about everything up there you could want in an outdoor town located in the Midwest.
Huh. Well, this week, our television show, we featured a hunt in Iowa. You, me, Matt O'Connor, the three of us, and then we met a couple of other chapter volunteers down there. But before we get into that hunt, the reason that we filmed that down there was because the time you spent in Iowa working. What was your role then? Were you a wildlife biologist down there for 5 years, or was it a different title? And then what kind of projects did you guys work on?
I was actually a regional representative, so I brag a little bit. I had one of the largest Pheasants Forever regions, I guess. Maybe not region, but I had the most chapters. I had 52 chapters that I basically provided customer service for, working with them on banquets, fundraising, those types of things, land acquisitions, and that was really towards the end, the last 2 years especially. I spent a lot of time on putting meetings together. The DNR would come, or one of our partner county conservation board would come and say, "Hey, we've got this awesome project. We're applying for a wildlife habitat grant or a different grant in the state of Iowa, and we need matching funds in order to get it. And we'd like Pheasants Forever to help us. It's an upland project. What can you do?" So I'd start with my local folks, local chapters in that specific area where the land acquisition is happening, and then we'd reach out to probably one or two counties wide all around where that central chapter is, and invite them to a meeting and try to come up with 25, 30, 35, 40, whatever the number might be, $1,000 at a single meeting. To try to kick these land acquisitions in the butt and give them a boost to get off the ground, and that was a big part of it. I really enjoyed land acquisition. In fact, in the fall journal coming up here, there's actually an article that's being done by Andrew Johnson out of South Dakota about our land acquisition efforts and how you see a potential property for sale, you think that might fit the bill for Pheasants Forever. You can let us know about it. And he kind of goes through the steps we take in order to do that. But yeah, it was customer service, youth hunts, veteran hunts, working on a lot of habitat projects, and especially land acquisitions. That was I don't want to say my forte, but I worked hard to bring money together to provide matching dollars for grants down there to get these acquisitions off the ground.
You took that sometime around 2008, I think you said. Would you say that was kind of like Iowa's rock bottom in terms of pheasants and pheasant numbers and pheasant hunters? I mean, because back in the early mid 1900s, Iowa was the mecca. Like that was the place to go to hunt pheasants. I mean, Iowa hunters took over 1 million ringnecks every fall, and then right around the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of the grass disappeared, went into row crops, and the numbers of birds and hunters just plummeted. But what was kind of like the lowest point in Iowa's pheasant hunting history? Was it right around the time you started?
Unfortunately, yes, it was. It's thanks for pointing that out, Travis.
But that's not your fault. That's not on you.
No, and I mean, I experienced some really good pheasant hunting without a dog when I was, in Northeast Iowa when I was going to school down there at Luther College. It was great. But yeah, that 2008 and 2009. So that the height, modern day height of CRP was about 2007, and that year we had excellent harvest. I think over 2 million birds were shot in states like South Dakota, North Dakota wasn't far behind, Kansas, Minnesota shot their modern day high that year. I think it was around 700,000 birds. And then after that new farm bill happened and acres went down, we kind of had the perfect storm of negative effects that contributed to Iowa's downfall at that time. So starting in, it was about 2008 and 2009, they had 5 winters and springs in a row with over the average amount of snowfall in the winter and over the average amount of rain, which is normally about 8 inches during the nesting period. And anytime that happens, we've only seen an increase one time in about 60 about 60 years of roadside data. So you're absolutely right. It was the bottom of the barrel. Like when you look at 2012 to like 2013, I mean, people were talking about shutting the pheasant season down. Nobody was going out. They didn't have a lot of, non-residents coming back. And you're absolutely right. Iowa used to be South Dakota. And I think in some ways, there's some great areas there, as you saw last fall, and we'll talk about, where pheasant numbers exploded. But they had 25 years in a row where they shot over 1 million birds. It was an incredible state, but that winter and spring precipitation pattern, plus the fact that we dropped from about 38 million acres nationwide down to 24, really hammered the pheasant population there. It's taken a while to come back, but I think you saw firsthand last year what's possible. You put good habitat on the ground, more CRP, and the result is a ringneck rebound in the Hawkeye state.
Absolutely. I know right now, if you've watched the show, then you understand what we're talking about right now. If you haven't, you probably should. It's airing right now on the Outdoor Channel this week on The Flush. We spent a couple of days hunting, and we were in western Iowa on that particular hunt, but I've been hearing from people for now, probably 3 years ago, I started hearing like, hey, you should come down and check this out. We've got a lot of birds here. Yeah, we'll get there. Maybe we'll get there. And we've been burned before. And so after a couple of years of hearing from a lot of people, and then you and I talked last summer, like we really got to go down there and spend some time in Iowa. And I would say from what we saw, numbers wise and birds, and we hunted public land and we hunted private land, but both places that we hunted, we saw a healthy population of birds. And I would say, there's places in South Dakota that have a lot of birds. I get it. But there are just as many, well, not just as many, but there are places in Iowa that are probably better. I'll just put it that way. I know a lot of hunters that say, you know what, Iowa is better than South Dakota right now. Would you go that far?
I think it depends. It depends regionally. There's some more intensively farmed regions in South Dakota right now where the bird population probably isn't what it could be. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few regions in Iowa where you're seeing sustainable farming practices and more CRP coming on the landscape. They sit at about 1.7 million acres of CRP right now, and I'll say it again. Yep. You saw it last year. I mean, you get those habitat efforts going, and the result can be birds, hundreds at a time, coming out of some of those fields.
Well, we hunted with the Shabans, and they worked with the landowner there, and it was pretty hilly. And so the landowner obviously wasn't getting, when I say pretty, I mean it was very steep. And the landowner wasn't getting a good return on his crops. And the Shabans are chapter volunteers down there. And he said, we can put this into grassland. And so he told us, Jared, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but he told us that I think it was 4 years before we had gotten there. So basically 5 years ago, that was all farmed for row crops, and there was not one wild pheasant or quail on that property. And when we hunted it with them, that grass was so thick. I mean, it was incredible how thick that grass was, but the birds, oh my goodness. I don't know, how many hundreds of birds did we see that day?
I'd say a couple hundred. You got to count the ones that are getting out ahead of you. I mean, right when we got there, right, and we get out of the truck and we're a couple hundred yards away from the field. You look over there and they're like, oh, there's a couple, and it's just waves of them getting up and headed over the next ridge, and you're just kind of thinking, boy, I wonder what's over that next hill. It's a nice feeling. And it's definitely something, like you said, I mean, Back when I left Iowa, they were just starting to get on the uptick again in that 2013, 2014. But during some of those years, you could walk around out there in Western Iowa and not find very much for a couple guys and a couple dogs. But this was a different deal, and so was the public land that we went on, the Iowa Habitat and Access Program acres that we hunted as well.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that. IHAP is Iowa Habitat Access Program. How many acres are now enrolled in that program? Do you know?
Whew, I'd have to go look. I think it's between 25 and 30,000 acres right now enrolled in that. The majority of it is in western Iowa, down to southern Iowa, where we've got a good deal of CRP acres.
And how does that program work? And how does somebody, let's say they're listening right now and they know somebody that has land that may want to enroll it, or they themselves want to enroll it? Is it through you, Pheasants Forever, or is it through the state?
It's through the state. Pheasants Forever, our biologists have helped enroll some of those acres, but Iowa Habitat and Access Program is funded through the DNR, but it's also funded through the VPA HIP, Voluntary Public Access and Habitat Incentive Program, which is a federal program through USDA and NRCS that basically provides matching grants to states, and then they go out and use. It's basically used to make more walk-in access, and that's exactly what IHAP is a walk-in access program. So they basically pay landowners a stipend with free habitat conservation benefits. They come in and make your property the very best it can be for wildlife, not just pheasants, but turkeys, deer, doves, whatever it might be. And for that payment, you sign a contract to open your land up to walk-in access, fall through spring, for a certain number of years. And the program's really taken off. It's working really well. It's gotten some pretty high marks from hunters. And I know personally, a lot of my friends that are still left in southern Iowa and part of chapters and stuff, they hunt on those properties a lot, especially south of Des Moines and west of there. And they have very, very good luck with upland birds on IHAP properties.
Yeah, we hunted late season. We were down there in December, and the season has obviously been open for quite a while. But we spent basically 2 days on public land on the IHAP properties, different ones. And
Yep.
it's, they're wild birds. It's public land. They've been hunted, but we didn't go on any properties or walk any properties where we didn't have shots that we took. I would say, if you're hunting public land in South Dakota, it's pretty much identical to that, in my opinion, as far as the amount of birds that we saw. We may have seen a few more in Iowa on our hunt. Are you seeing that program continue to grow, or is it do you feel like it's leveled?
As far as the walk-in access acres?
Yeah.
A lot of it depends on enrollment in CRP, and if the VPA HIP funding, which was enacted in this last farm bill, is still there for states to grow these programs. So I think Iowa's gonna try to keep growing it. I don't know why they wouldn't. It's a wonderful program, and for a state that I think ranks 49th for the amount of acres they have for public land. And don't let that turn you off. In whatever state it might be, I don't care if it's Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota, 75% of your upland hunting happens in the first month. After that, it really dives off. You might have little upticks during, possibly Thanksgiving or the last day of the season. But other than that, if you want to find a spot to hunt in Iowa, you certainly can do so between waterfowl production areas and wildlife management areas and these IHAP properties. There's a lot of them. I don't think the word is totally out yet either. We didn't see a ton of people on IHAP properties. Would you agree with me? I mean,
we didn't see anybody that I can remember.
I think there was maybe one vehicle at one of them, but I think in the show you hear me say, like, we got, this parcel here is 500 acres and there's roosters cackling, and we're sitting out in these gravel roads in the morning trying to locate some roosters before we get out there. And I don't think we had a single car drive past us, and that was the beginning of December.
Mm-hmm.
So the when people say like, oh, I won't hunt here, I won't hunt there, because there's nowhere to go. I don't necessarily believe that. I think if you do your homework and get out there and hunt, especially during the week or during the later months, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to hunt a lot of ground by yourself
Mm-hmm.
or
Well, and
friends.
it was interesting too. Like we hunted places. You and I, you've never hunted there. Matt
No,
O'Connor joined us.
no.
He hadn't hunted there. He's worked on the properties, but he's not hunted them. And so we got up real early in the morning. And I remember you drove to one property. I think we drove to another one, and we just sat and watched it because it's massive. I mean, there's 3 hunters, and if you're doing it right, you're putting in a little bit of scouting time, right? So you were out there
Yep.
just as light was breaking and watching where the birds were moving to. Is that kind of a typical approach that you take on hunting public land?
I do. If you're not out there scouting it, you don't you don't really know what's there. Like you'll like in some of those parking lots we went to, there was plenty of like vehicle tracks in there that had been driven on for the last month and good month anyways. But we pulled up into some of those areas, but that's typically what I do is I go to the crop edges where it meets the grass and looking around, and we're seeing roosters and hens diving into the cover, listening for cackles, seeing some of those birds come flying back in or chasing each other around in there. We did that every morning, and I don't know. I think it worked extremely well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. If you're not doing it, you're just you got to put those extra miles on your feet, and you can see exactly where those birds are soaring into, and it just kind of shortens the curve a little bit. I know when we're out there, we have to maximize our time because we need to come home with a television show. Fortunately, we ran into
Yep.
quite a few birds. I want to talk about sleeper destinations with you and specific regions in Iowa that stand out. But first, before I do, I have a quick message from our presenting sponsor, North Dakota Tourism. The ringneck pheasant crowing count is up 15% this year in 2020, and with an estimated 4 million breeding ducks, up 18% this year. North Dakota's central region is prime habitat for both hunting waterfowl and upland birds. Plus, North Dakota has more than 700,000 acres of private land open to public walk-in hunting. For the latest plots guide, visit the North Dakota Game and Fish Department or legendary.com. Jared, will you be hunting North Dakota this year?
I don't have any plans at this moment in time to get up there. I plan on doing a lot of hunting kind of closer to home this year. I've got one media hunt with Federal in South Dakota, but yeah, North Dakota I think is going to be a great state this year from what I'm hearing on the landscape.
Yeah, man, everything, and it's great to hear. We continue to talk about it on this program. I know you guys do as well, at Pheasants Forever and On the Wing podcast. But really, just a lot of positivity coming out of the upland world right now, which is great because we need it. Right, we all need it. We're all looking forward to it. Hunting season is just a few days away. For most of us, and let's talk about what you think this year is gonna look like. Let's just stick with Iowa for a second, then we'll branch out. What do you think the pheasant and quail forecast looks like for Iowa this year?
I think it's going to be pretty good. Like I said, I've got a lot of chapter folks and good friends down there that kind of communicate back and forth with me, and know a lot of farmers too that are seeing some very very positive signs on the landscape when they're working the land. And I think brood counts are going to be up down there. The one unknown that we don't know of is how the derecho weather pattern might have affected birds. I mean, you look at some of those fields down there; they lost, I think millions of acres is what it was,
Mm-hmm.
of corn that's basically laying on the ground right now. And what 115-mile-an-hour winds do to pheasants and pheasant broods, I'm not sure. But even then, after those went through, I've talked to people down there that have seen some of their largest broods of the year after after those winds went through. So, hopefully the birds are going to be okay. I think the central region, northwest and western, are going to be really good. Just from what I've heard so far, and we'll see more here once the roadside count comes out. But yeah, I think Iowa is going to be a great destination for folks if you're looking for an upland bird hunt, sort of in the breadbasket of America.
So if you had 3 days to go hunt Iowa, can you tell us where you would go?
I think I'd probably start north central or northwest. From a public lands hunting standpoint, the Great Lakes region of Iowa, which kind of centers around, Spirit Lake, the city of Spirit Lake's got a ton of public land around it. And there's a lot of waterfowl production areas and wildlife management areas up there that, we've worked hard with the DNR and a lot of partners to try to acquire over the years. And I'm hearing some good things from that region. They're down through kind of the western belt there, and those IHAP properties I think are going to be really good. They did have a little bit of drought, some severe drought in some of those counties, but that wasn't until a little bit later in the summer after those chicks had a little while to grow. There were some CRP acres that were taken off through haying. Just because of emergency rules, and they weren't growing a lot of grass at the time because of the drought. So some of those birds might be concentrated in certain areas. So I would definitely head that way and check it out.
One of the birds that doesn't get a lot of attention in Iowa, at least from what I hear, are the bobwhite quail. And we ran into a few coveys of quail when we were hunting down there, which to me is just such a great bonus. I mean, I love pheasants, I love a rooster, but when you get a covey flush, what does your quail outlook look like for Iowa?
Their numbers come out maybe a little bit later here. So I heard good things early on, though. I mean, even our hunt last year, I think people are going to see it. We got in some quail, and that was in that's I wouldn't necessarily call that like the west central region either. That's more kind of northwestern where we ran into those ones. But I've been hearing good things about quail in a lot of different places. It'd be interesting to see if they're up or not. I mean, they had some dry weather early on, and then they had some rain going on here too. But I've been hearing of broods, and they're a little bit harder to get a number on until roadside counts come out. But I'd be willing to bet they're going to be even to last year, or maybe a little bit up.
What part of Iowa would you consider like if somebody says, you know what, I really want to try quail hunting, is there a certain region? I mean, is it far south Iowa?
Well, as you noticed last year, it doesn't have to be far south Iowa,
Right,
but
right.
a lot of the there's actually a quail oriented program in the state through CRP that they use to help quail populations, and the majority of that is in southern Iowa. So I'd say if you're looking for a good quail hunt, do some research. Focus on probably the southern 3 tiers of counties across southern Iowa from west to east is a really good place to start. And those IHAP properties hold plentiful quail populations where they're managing for them.
Do you feel like this rebound is here to stay in Iowa? I mean, is this something that can sustain?
I think it will be as long as we can maintain CRP acres. One of the things that's really helped Iowa too the last couple years is the amount of pollinator habitat that they put in. And I really believe, and I think our biologists down there believe it too, Iowa, since CP42 pollinator habitat came out, it's great. It's great habitat for pheasants and quail, and it's really great for broods because it produces a lot of bugs. I mean, that's what flowering plants do. And they've got the most in the nation. They've got 218,000 acres enrolled right now of pollinator habitat in Iowa. And I think as long as we can keep CRP numbers up, I mean, pheasants are a grassland bird. And if we can keep CRP numbers up and continue to add some awesome projects in the form of land acquisitions, weather needs to help us too. The weather's pretty volatile right now, but if we can have average winters and average springs, the pheasants are going to be there for hunters come fall.
Looking outside of Iowa, what other top, maybe they're sleeper destinations or good old fashioned, South Dakota stomps, but what areas are you saying, hey, this is going to be an incredible hunting season?
You know what? I'll give props to the state of Minnesota, and South Dakota, kind of this whole Midwest region. The winter started pretty bad last year, and I was pretty concerned. But then come March and April, man, did we have quite the warm up? We had a lot of snow that came off the landscape. Fields were open for birds. People were seeing a lot of birds. And I can tell you firsthand from what I've seen. I've been traveling around taking pictures of wildlife management areas and U.S. Fish and Wildlife properties that we've donated their way in the form of land acquisitions this year for a new map that we're working on. And I'm seeing coveys or broods on the road. I'm seeing broods, and I pulled into, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I pulled into an unmowed wildlife management area parking lot, and I had a whole bunch of birds come up from underneath my car that were sitting in an unmowed parking lot. So seeing good things. Talking to landowners. I've got a college buddy in Western Minnesota that said, "Man, I'm seeing a lot of broods, on his property," and I think that kind of bodes well for across the range. They did have a little bit of hail in some spots, and that might set back birds, but that's very. I wouldn't say that's on a regional basis. That's very local. Jumping over the border, we've got South Dakota. From all of our partners, landowners, biologists, they're seeing some really big and really healthy broods over there, and very numerous. So, even though they aren't doing a brood count this year in the state, sounds like. Just from what people are seeing on the landscape, South Dakota sounds like it's got a ton of birds waiting for upland hunters that are going to travel that direction this year. We talked about North Dakota. Their crowing counts were up. Prairie grouse, I'm hearing some really good things. I talked to a rancher the other day that was looking to get into some type of conservation program, and he said, "Yeah, we maybe haven't recovered all the way from the drought followed by the floods that they had, and bad winter weather." But he said, "Man, I'm seeing a lot of grouse on the landscape, which is good." So Minnesota, Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota, I think they're all going to be pretty decent. I've heard from folks over in Illinois. Especially in kind of east central Illinois, where they've got a lot of pollinator habitat and other things. Birds are looking good over there. I think all across the board, people are going to be pretty happy with what they see this fall if they decide to lace up the boots and let the bird dog explore.
Well, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be doing that. Before I ask a question about the influx of hunters, do you have a pulse on the quail numbers for this year around the country? And is there certain regions? I mean, I'm hearing from other hunters that, Arizona had a lot of moisture. New Mexico, the numbers are looking really good. Texas, are you hearing the same? Are there certain regions that you're really excited about? Maybe it's Kansas or Nebraska.
From the Arizona standpoint, I think their Gambel's quail is looking to be pretty good because they got the rains that they needed, and then those rains shut off or were spotty. So I'm not sure what Mern's quail is going to do this year. They're a little bit harder to predict. You just have to get out there and hunt them. But Gambel's quail. My parents live down in Arizona. My dad said that the amount of Gambel's quail, and our staff too, the amount of birds that they're seeing has been pretty good, and it looks like they double nested this year, since you got a male Bob White leading a lot of these smaller broods around, and that female's gone off and raised another brood. So I think that's going to be good. Texas, Oklahoma, man, they had some really really hot weather down there for a couple weeks in a row. They had rains early on, kind of shut off, and then they've had some spotty ones here and there. Chad Love, our Quail Forever editor, tells me that he's still seeing and hearing plenty of quail in his region, maybe more so than he's heard for a while. So those populations are a little bit harder to predict. Most of those roadside counts in those areas don't come out until kind of the beginning of October, and that's in sync with our quail forecast that we launch, which I believe is probably the most comprehensive one in the nation. So people can look forward to that come early October.
Where are they going to find it?
Quailforever.org, pheasantsforever.org. We're working on our pheasant forecast right now as well. It's going to be on our Facebook, all of our social accounts, and it's going to be on our website as well. You can go under the hunting tab at pheasantsforever.org or quailforever.org, and you'll find everything you need there for your state forecast coming up.
Nice. One of the other things you guys do is you partner with other manufacturers, and you have a lot of hunting gear and apparel and stuff on your website. Is there any new products this season that you're excited to test out or try, or anything in particular worth not worth, but that you would recommend people take a look at?
I'm pretty in love with Browning gear. I've got a lot of it. I've purchased a lot of it, whether it's through our store or straight through their manufacturer over the years. And they've got their new bird and light vest, kind of like the 2.0 version. They've got some really neat stuff that's really well made, anywhere from light shirts to begin the season, so you're not sweating through, to some jacket and vest combos that are just really genuine and really nice. And I think, if anybody's looking for that gear, we've got it right now on our website at 25% off. You can use the code TAKE, TAKE 25 when you check out. And you get 25% off your entire order, whether that's Browning or any of the other types of gear that we have. But, Browning's a great partner of ours. We use our logo on their gear, and any gear that's purchased, they contribute back to the organization. So I really encourage people to whether it's ammo and like federal premium ammunition or some of the apparel through like Browning, take account of those companies that are giving back to conservation. There's not a lot that do, but for the most part, the ones that do, we are lockstep with them as partners in conservation for upland birds. So Browning and federal would be big ones on the gear side.
Amen. What advice does Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever have this season for hunters, knowing that we might be seeing just an crazy amount of hunters hitting the field this year? Travel might look a little bit different for others. Is there a message that you're trying to send to hunters?
One is get out. If you've got a dog, a bird dog, that's what they're there for, and that's what they live for. So just get out and hunt. Do your homework. You can call our biologists. You can call state game agencies. If you've got Onyx, if you don't, I hope you'll get it. There's a coupon code right now on our website for that as well. But using Onyx maps and doing some digital scouting is a great way to do it. And like I said at the beginning of the show, we're pretty deep into this campaign for responsible recreation, #responsible recreation right now. And it's basically just encouraging people. We want to make sure people are being safe when they're being out there hunting, not just from the standpoint of gun control and knowing where your muzzle is at all times, but from the pandemic standpoint. I mean, there's some scary things still happening, but there's no better social distancing activity than upland birds. So I would encourage people to follow those guidelines. Be careful when you're out on the landscape. Try not to congregate in big crowds, and the wide open prairies of the Midwest and the Great Plains are a great way to socially distance yourself. And all in all, I think it's going to be a very productive year. All signs point to we're going to be selling more licenses on the landscape. I hope people buy their duck stamps. When you're hunting waterfowl production areas and those types of things, there could be a big infusion of finances and cash here from hunters into conservation to help buy more areas and create great wildlife habitat projects. So take a new person hunting this year, practice responsible recreation, and I really hope everybody has a great fall. It's shaping up to be one of the best I think we've seen in a while.
I have nothing to add to that. I echo everything you've just said. It's exactly it. I mean, it's really just making a point to help somebody that might need help. If you can see that they're doing something incorrectly, talk to them about it. Give them a hand or give them advice. And I know from a lot of news outlets that I've read this year that trash amounts are up in our state parks and places where people are going to get away. I just really hope that doesn't translate into the hunting fields, especially if you are lucky enough to talk to a landowner that gives you permission. Go out of your way to make sure that you respect that land and that landowner, and to pick up any garbage that somebody else may leave behind. I'm hoping that it's not a hunter that did it, but even if it is, we can do our part to keep our image looking good for all of us for years to come. But Jared, I appreciate you taking the time. Iowa was a blast. If you haven't watched the episode, it's airing right now this week. Our show, The Flush, airs on the Outdoor Channel Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Hope you catch it. And Cal, dang it, it was real. It was good. It was worth going back again and again for Iowa. I just hope they can keep this rebound alive, because there are a lot of birds down there. Jared, you have a wonderful hunting season. I'm sure we're going to talk plenty over the course of it. Hopefully we can have you back on the show again for an in-season update on what we're hearing on the landscape out there. It's going to be a good hunting season. So once again, thank you to North Dakota Tourism. Yep. Thank you to North Dakota Tourism for helping us make this show possible. To make your limit this fall in North Dakota, visit legendary.com. All of our episodes are now airing on the Outdoor Channel. Catch the action every week from now until the end of December. And then after our season is done, they will all be streaming online in their entirety. So there are many ways to watch the show, but most importantly, we just hope that you get out into the field and enjoy some time with friends and family and your favorite four-legged hunting companion. We'll catch you next week on another episode of the Flush Podcast.